Welcome to our webcast for the Center on Self-Employment. My name is Ashley Lance, and I'm one of the staff for the center. Today, I'm very excited that we are going to hear from Inga Hubend with Wyoming Vocational Rehabilitation. And our conversation today is going to look at some success stories, to learn a little bit about how Wyoming VR is implementing their self-employment program. And I'm thrilled that Inga is here because I think she has some fantastic stories and incredible experience to share with us. So welcome, Inga.
Thank you for that. Nice to meet everyone. Thank you. So Wyoming Vocational Rehabilitation and the Business Enterprise Program. I think we do things a little bit different than the rest of the nation because Wyoming is not part of the Randolph-Shepard Act. And so we have a small vending program. Currently, on average, we serve about 65 to 70 people, but we've had years where we've had over 150. And so it's steady, busy going, and we do have quite a few success stories that we have throughout the years, and it varies a little bit from year to year how many individuals follow through with their business plan and actually get started. So we do have a rigorous program for our clients, and I'll go ahead and share my screen here real quick, then I can introduce.
Great. And Inga, how long have you been doing self-employment?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I have been doing self-employment for 15 years with vocational rehabilitation. Before that, I worked with a small business development center for about 5 years. And then I came to VR and I learned to love VR and stuck it out here, and I've been here ever since.
So I just want to note, for many counselors, oftentimes self-employment can feel a little overwhelming because I think many of us didn't get in the field of being a VR counselor to focus on self-employment. So I think it's really unique that, you know, your background is around small businesses as opposed to vocational rehabilitation.
Yes, that's right. So I came from the business world. Originally, I'm from Germany and I studied hotel management, and I worked in that field for a number of years. And then I came to the United States, did all kinds of odd jobs until I ended up working for the Small Business Development Center. And yeah, business startup has been my life here. And so I took that focus on, if somebody wants to start a business, they need to start the business correct. They need to focus on business planning. They need to be engaged in that process, and whether or not they have a disability shouldn't really matter. So we work with the client and their disability and help them the best that we can, but they still need to be able to do that. Focus on, what does it mean to operate an LLC? What does it mean to pay taxes? How do I keep my records? That is important for anyone wanting to be self-employed. And so we do emphasize that a lot. And sometimes it takes a little bit longer to get somebody through that progress. And sometimes people just pick it up and they move through it rather quickly. So it really depends on the individual. And I've learned over the years to really individualize that process and make it for each client. And I think that is the key to the success, to focus on the individual, to really listen and work with the VR team. So here in Wyoming, we usually have one counselor. Sometimes there is a support team that the client has, which is really important. And then they're part of that business planning process.
Great. Well, I'll let you go ahead and kind of walk through. I know you have some information prepared for us today, and then we'll go ahead and get into details.
So I'd like to introduce my partner here in our business enterprise program. This is Robbie Milonas, and she is a really key person for us because she manages the vending program. So in Wyoming, we bid out our available spaces in all of our state-owned and state-leased buildings. And then different vending machine operators and owners are bidding for those locations. So we have snack candy machines, we have ATM machines, we have pop, of course, and those bring us in commissions. And then that gets a federal match, and that is the business enterprise fund that we have available each year to help our clients with their small business startup expenses. Okay. Moving on, here's another picture, got some vending machines in the background for you that we have on our Cheyenne location here. And so we really work hard. So we have about 200 vending sites across Wyoming. Wyoming may not be a really big state, but it is a long time to drive through it. And so it's very spread apart. And sometimes it takes just a lot of times. Robbie will spend a summer driving to check out all of the vending machines, make sure that everything is where it needs to be, that people understand what we're doing. So we constantly have to tell our state employees why that is so important for us to maintain. And we actually have a state statute that allows us to collect these funds in these manners. And so it's really helpful that the state is behind us with this program. Okay, so that is Robbie, and thank you to Robbie because this is awesome, the work that she does for us. Okay, and Jayla is a young individual, really proud of her. I worked with her for about a year. She wanted to do nails. And she just went straight from high school. Then she came to vocational rehabilitation. Before Jayla met with me, she had her cosmetic school completed. And that part is different for different clients. So sometimes counselors will refer the VR client to me before they start any training, just to see, can a client follow through? Is that a good fit? Will the business work? Sometimes the client is so wrong about this is what I want to do and this is how I can do it. And they know that. And so the counselor sometimes goes ahead and pays for the school before they even refer them to me for business planning. So in this case, that's how that had worked. Jayla had worked really hard, needed a couple of times before she passed her exam. And after that, she was then referred to me, and then we started working on her business plan. And initially, Jayla thought this was just going to be, I'll meet with that person for a couple of times, and then I'm going to get started. And that just wasn't the case. So she understood pretty quickly that we had to go through all these different processes and help her figure out, well, you know how to do nails, but how do you get your customers on a regular basis? What happens if something happens in your store? Where can you go to work in the meantime? What is your backup plan? How do you keep your records? How do you pay your taxes? And then the question, of course, was, well, what are taxes? And how do I figure out what self-employment taxes are? And do I have to have an accountant? And so we worked through all of these situations. We provided examples. We showed her how things worked and did some financial projections. And those are really scary for most people, but Jayla took to them and she understood that. And then she decided that she was going to do most of her taxes herself, but she'll have a accountant at year end to help her with that. That person that works on the same premises also helps her with business mentoring. And so she has a really good connection that way. So some of those things that might come up, some of the issues of record keeping, this individual's already been in business for a long time. And so she has really good support going on.
And so Inga, going back to that, because I think you point out such an important piece that self-employment also might be the best pathway for someone because it allows them to work to their full capacity. However, I may not know about the taxes or how I get reoccurring customers. And so when you say that you provided that support, is that, connecting her with that mentor, or talk to us a little bit about what does that support look like?
Okay, so while the client is working with us, developing that business plan, it's very theoretical. They do market research, they have to figure out who is their ideal customer, what is their target market like, what are the industry trends, what's happening with the industry. So you have to be aware, for example, and I'm aware of that now, not when we started her business, but now there are AI and robotic machines that can actually do your nails. So I'm working with another client in a different part of Wyoming who also wants to have a nail salon of some sort. And we're discussing that because I became aware of that option. So for this other client, we have to work on, is that going to be an issue? Would that technology move into your area anytime soon? And would you have to worry about it? And so those were the things that we worked on with Jayla. So where are your customers coming from? Who are they? In her case, she was really well connected. She had been doing nails all throughout high school, just sitting there with her friends. And so she had unknowingly built up her clientele.
Which
And
I think
she was known and people, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to point out, I think that's such a great point. So often in our work at the center, we're oftentimes, like, just try that business concept out, or some, like that. Oftentimes that kind of preparatory self-employment piece ends up where the business owner's actually been, kind of organically trying that out. So I love that you brought up that, that was something she was already doing.
Yeah, she had, and that's why she knew when she came to VR, this is what I know how to do, and I can do that. And so it was just, for her, it was a no-brainer. For us, it became fairly quickly clear that yes, this individual is really capable of working in that business. And even though she really doesn't have a lot of job experience, this worked for that individual. So it's just a good situation. And then she has her family to support her. She has that business owner that she rents a space from to continue to support her efforts and make sure that she's working. And then here we have some examples of some of the nails that she's working on and the work that she does. And she states that she didn't have any startup issues. Normally we start our businesses and stuff happens. And we're like, oh, I didn't think of that. That's not part of my business plan. For Jayla, she opened her doors and customers came and they keep coming. And so she's been in business for a few months now and doing really good. And she's excited. And I think she will do really, really well for a long time.
Awesome. Can you tell us a little, what was the investment from VR like? I mean, you don't have to give us an exact number, but, for counselors out there who might be thinking, oh, well, how much, did VR invest in this business?
Okay, yeah, I don't know what we paid for her training, but she already had her license with all of that, so that was taken care of. But we helped her with her city license, her LLC registration, and we helped her with the equipment that she needed. So this was a cheaper startup business. It was under $5,000. So it's very affordable. Very doable. And once we approved it, it went very quickly because in her case, we were able to make most of her purchases through Amazon. And so she was able to put it all together. And as you saw in the earlier picture, she has really good taste and she picked up all this furniture and it was really cheap, but it was really good looking and it put a nice little office together. And then her family helped her paint that area and make it look really nice. We don't pay for remodeling or buildings, or somebody needs rent for their businesses. In this case, we did not include rent. It's only available for a month or two. So their cash flow really has to show that that business can support rent for an ongoing term.
Great.
Okay. So another thing that maybe I can mention here is in Wyoming, we have put a relationship together with the Wyoming Women's Business Center. And sometimes we can utilize them for our funding source, which helps us to make difficult purchases easier. So what happens in those cases when we approve a business plan, the VR client will register their business entity. They will open up their business checking account. And after we've approved it, they then will fill out a loan application with the Wyoming Women's Business Center. We will pay for the loan origination fee and the credit report. And the client actually will have to get a loan on their own credit. So sometimes that can help them with a small boost in their credit records if they needed that, because DVR will pay that loan off. Once they receive that funding, the Women's Business Center will send us an invoice and then we'll pay that off. And the client shows they borrowed X amount of dollars and then they paid it off fairly quickly. And so there can be a little boost on their credit scores and help them out that way. And then they can buy the items that they need. They can buy them from the locations that they need. And it's not very difficult because we're not stuck to where the state of Wyoming can make those purchases. And so it helps. We do have to make sure that the clients are responsible because they have to provide receipts. They have to prove that they purchase only the approved items. And if there's a deviation, they have to have conversations with us. So we're monitoring that. And then the Women's Business Center also requires the same kind of reporting. So it works really well in that relationship for us. And then they get continued technical support. So they have post-loan business counseling available to them and all the other services that the Business Center offers for them. Okay, Little Messy is another recent startup that is already selling, which is so incredibly amazing to me. I think retail businesses, craft businesses are really difficult. And you never know what you get into. And this individual worked really, really hard on her business plan. Because of her injury, she has memory issues, and it was a little bit difficult sometimes for her to go through that entire business plan and understand why these things were needed. She really hung on and got really happy, I guess, with her marketing part, because that was the most important part for her. Trying to sell and being online and in her small community where she has some support. So those mugs that you see, some of them are in some local stores on consignment, and she's selling online as well. And so it's been really great to see this person move forward. It too took a little while to get through that business plan. We had to take it piece by piece. We had weekly meetings. We met by phone because, again, that person was the opposite end of the state where I'm located at. And so we do that by phone and video conferences, and then the counselor works with them more on things where they need more assistance with. So we have that teamwork going and making sure that they have the support that they need. And then in that case, here we spent about $12,000, I think, if I remember that correctly. There was some equipment that the client needed. She already had some inventory, but we helped her with some more raw mugs and inventory pieces so that she doesn't have to worry about replenishing inventory for a while, so that whatever profit she's making is pure profit for her, minus her taxes and her direct business expenses. And so she does really, really good work. When she showed me some of her pictures during the business planning process, she had some really nice images on her products. Like, where are you getting those from? So then we talked about trademark issues and copyright issues, and she learned that she can't just use anything she has to make sure that permission is available or purchase the rights to these images if she is using them. So that was another long and eye-opening conversation to have with that particular client, because that is obviously important, that you can't just take other people's ideas, and especially when they own the rights to certain things. So we talked a lot about that. So in these types of conversations, we always, well, do I need to get copyright? Do I need to get a trademark and things like that? So we talk about that and how complicated it can get. And yes, we've helped before with people that needed copyright and things like that. We've also tried patents at some time. What we do in that case with patents, we have a market research center and we have a product research center in Wyoming with the university. And we contact these individuals and they give us a preliminary research report that tells us this idea may or may not be possibly patentable. I'm sorry about that. So when we get that report back and it shows that there's a chance of 60% or more that it might be patentable, we might consider going forward with assisting a client with a patent. And the client, before we would do all that, would have to finish a business plan showing what they're doing and how that patent is going to be used in the future. Now, with that being said, maintaining a patent can be very expensive. And so the client will have to show how those maintenance fees will be paid for by the business, because DVR will not continuously pay and won't be able to pay for the entire cost of the patent. So just as a side note, that is possible, but it hasn't happened too often. We had a couple of clients that went through the initial research process, and none of these clients had a 60% plus chance that the idea was actually patentable.
I love that you bring that up. That's, I feel like something we haven't talked about is, you know, what do you do around those patent situations? Because, you know, I think we know even just across the country, when we think about disability innovation and the creativity that comes from entrepreneurs with disabilities, you know, you think about if you listen to an audiobook, if you typed an email, if you used cruise control, all of those things are rooted in disability innovation. And so I love that at Wyoming VR, you're also having those conversations around that patent piece. And if other offices have questions about that, can they reach out to you?
Yeah, of course. And the important thing is to know that we're not the experts. So you have to reach out to the experts. So you have to find good patent attorneys. You have to find your research centers and see what your state offers so that you utilize those resources, because that is just a whole nother difficult process that would be added onto the regular business planning process. And so you would just want to make sure that that is part of it. We are currently exploring some options of voiceover work. So, for example, in that business idea, the individual needs to worry about how to go about setting up the business. Will I contract with companies that help promote me so that I can record audiobooks, or will I try doing that on my own? So there's a difference on how that business structure will work, because you're self-employed regardless, but you can't make your own rules if you're trying to contract with somebody that will hire you so that you can actually provide that work. So you're more on a freelance basis than completely self-employed trying to find all of your work. So all these different issues, and that's the same with the patent and anything else, really depends on the individual situation. And that's why I think that is so important to really focus on what's going on. And sometimes it just means having a very tough conversation. and getting the client to think about that. Oftentimes when people come in with these ideas, let's say patents, they have a really good understanding of that could potentially bring me a lot of money. And they usually have been to websites that promise you everything and then some. And these websites are promising them a return of investment. They are promising them the patent attorney. All they have to do is pay X amount of dollars, which is usually in the thousands. And then they come to VR and they want that money for us. And so then when we have those conversations, and then when we talk about, well, with how many people have you shared your idea? Because there's a point when you share your idea too much, you already put it out there on public domain, and then it cannot be patented anymore. So there's different issues and things that go with that, and they go along with, you know, do I do it all on my own, or am I going to be a freelancer, or things like that. So all these things, while they're different, they're still kind of the same, and they all require that research, that understanding of, is something legit? Where do we go? Who are my resources that I have, and what are the experts' opinions about that? And so really listening to them as well is really, really important. So that's way off of our client here.
That's all right. That's all right. Thank you for going down that rabbit hole with me.
No, that's fine. So back to little Messi here. This individual had a lot of struggles with her accident, and it really took her over 2 years to just kind of find out what she is capable of doing, and working with her VR counselor, trying to get to that point. So oftentimes they've already been working with VR for a long time before they even decide that, well, maybe self-employment is something that I want to explore. And so I get a seasoned VR client down the road that has worked with us for some time already, but then starts brand new with a new idea, and then sometimes it works and sometimes the idea doesn't work, and we'll send them back to their regular VR process for future employment. And I don't know, people seem to think it's a waste of time working on a business plan that doesn't work out. But it is such a huge learning opportunity. I find that clients learn so much about themselves. They're more open and honest and say, I really don't know how to do this, or I know I cannot do this on my own. Being employed would be a better option. And so that is a huge win, even if we spend 6 months with a client before they come to that conclusion. And so it's really an eye-opening process, and I never see that as wasted time. Or even if a client only wants to explore the option, not sure if they want to do that or not. So that is, I welcome all of them, because they learn. They learn something about business, they learn something about themselves. And usually the counselor reports that it's so much easier now to get them in an employment setting because they're open. And they want to do, they realize they have abilities, they can do certain things, but now they're ready. And so that is a huge win in my book. So unfortunately, those clients we don't showcase in that ways, but our counselors do with their success stories on how those clients are employed.
Great.
Okay, so I have only 2 success stories to show right now. We have a few others, but of course, we don't have permission to share a lot of that information.
Sure.
So in the past, we've done a lot of different things. We're kind of all over the place. We don't focus on specific business. It's really, what does the client want to do? What are they able to do? Often they come with a lot of skills. They come with a lot of dreams, and oftentimes they don't have hope yet. And that happens throughout that process, and they begin to realize this is going to be tough, but I can do that. And so we've done a lot of different businesses. A really neat one some years ago was a business that did kind of like medical tattoos. So if somebody lost their eyebrows because of cancer treatments or something, they would tattoo these eyebrows on for them. It was a permanent thing, so you didn't have to do it with makeup every day. And so that was a really good business that stayed in business for a really long time. And so we have all kinds of different things. So this slide here just gives you a quick overview of some of the things that we have done in the past. And yeah, there's all kinds of nice stories that are with that. Unfortunately, these individuals I can't share very many details with, but this is what they have been doing. You see that we have self-published author. That one was a really, really nice story, really successful for us because first, that individual wanted to do a coffee shop. And we worked diligently on a business plan for over a year and didn't get anywhere. And then the client just dropped off. And then came back with a plan already finished and already having interest in a children's book. And she found a publisher that would do that. And that also was only a $5,000 investment on our end. And now that individual is working on a second book and is slowly selling her copies and is happy doing the thing that she found out she really loves. So that happens too, and it happens quite a lot that we have those complete changes and clients that don't seem like they're ready yet. And then they come back and you think, well, why do they keep coming back? You know, we're not going anywhere, but they have changed, they have grown. And so those, to me, those are really good stories.
Absolutely, because I think so often, you know, for society kind of as the audience, you just see the finished product of the success story. And I love that you pointed out that, you know, individuals who pursue self-employment, but then decide wage employment is the best route, that there's nothing wrong with that. It's almost, you know, kind of like a variation of discovery because you're exploring this business model, you're learning about yourself. And I imagine for the counselor, I'm hoping the message received is just that counselors can feel confident in even authorizing those self-employment supports. And even if it doesn't, that there doesn't have to be that guarantee of the business is going to work out, but that, you know, you take it step by step. And even in those scenarios where, you know, the business doesn't come to fruition, it gives more information to that employment planning process to still result in success.
Yeah, and I found that to be really important. Even sometimes we focus on businesses that are just barely self-sustainable. And what that means is that individual is not going to make money to live off of the business's income, but the business can continue to purchase supply, pay its expenses, and the individual feels like they're contributing to society. And sometimes that's all they can do. And if it is an affordable startup business, I found it turns people's lives around. It makes them happy and they just are alive again. They want to participate in life. And so it changes their lives that way. And I have approved many plans like that. They do have to show that, yeah, you can sell enough product, services, whatever it is, that you can sustain that business. But so many clients have really found purpose. And sometimes the support team is really relieved to understand that, well, they need help. They need our help to finish that job, but they're really happy and they're now moving forward. And everybody has a purpose. And so that's really cool. We have a couple of small shredding business, and these individuals, they really need a support team all the time to make sure that they get to these jobs, that they can continue working on providing the services that they promised they would provide, that their business is being managed properly. But if they have that support and if it's continuous, I think it's a really good outcome for these individuals. And so it's difficult sometimes when you're looking at it from a business perspective. And it took me many years to really figure that part out, coming from the business world, to separate, well, this isn't really a business. We would call that a hobby. But some people need that. And just because the IRS defines that as a hobby business doesn't make it less important. And so we have to explain to them, you might not always be considered in an active business status from an IRS point of view, but you'll have your job to do. And you continue to pay your taxes if you have enough revenue that you're bringing in, and you're doing everything that you need to do. And as long as you can pay for your gas or other supplies, you're good to go. And so that is also a successful business.
Absolutely. One question that sometimes we get at the center is, how are you staying in contact with business owners after the success of the business? So for that closure information and data collection, how are you staying in contact with folks?
Yeah. So our VR counselors are doing that for the most part, because they're the ones that manage the case from start to close, and they're responsible for that. It is helpful if the counselor reports information back, because sometimes clients, for some reason, they don't know that they can come back and ask questions, even though I mentioned that to them and I put it in writing to them. Please call me if you have questions, especially if things don't go well, then we want to have conversations. And so that is there. Some counselors are really proactive, and they make sure that I'm very much aware of what's happening. And then I can come in and help if needed, or just provide referral services. I also teach all of my clients that we have a really good business network in Wyoming that they should seek out. So every state has small business development centers. Every state has economic development chambers. So you should meet with your chambers. You should meet with some of these individuals and just get to know them so that you know who's out there. And while you're not responsible for making those connections for the client down the road, it's important to know that you can trust these individuals and that they know what they're doing, and they're really doing good jobs out there, and they can be the ones to continue helping the clients with their businesses once they have started and they've been in business for a while. And then when clients do call back, and unfortunately right now that is still a hit and miss kind of situation, I would love to change that, but we can't force clients to have continued contact with us when we close their cases and things like that. So that is a problem. But I also tell them, when we work on business planning, we are looking 1 year into the future from where we're starting your business. When you go to a bank, they want 3 to 5 years of your financial future. But here at VR, this is kind of where we can monitor. We have that 1 year, more or less. It's not always the same. But we have generally that 1 year that we're going to make sure that everything is going good and working well for you. And that is what they understand. And so the clients that are really into it and really excited, they will keep in touch either with their counselor or with me or both of us. And so that does work. Then there's clients that just go off and do their own thing. They don't want to have the VR stigma with them attached. And if they reach out to Small Business Development Center or SCORE or whoever else is out there that can help them, then that's great. And really that's what they need to do. And in my business planning process, they always have to identify potential strategic alliance partners. So who are some businesses that you can reach out to? Who can help you if you have questions? And it doesn't have to be, so if you want to be a nail salon, you want to start a nail salon, it doesn't have to be another person doing nails. It can be your dentist. It could be your husband's barber shop, for example. Anybody really that has a business can help with certain questions, because business is business and there are similarities. They don't need to understand what you're doing. Even your local baker can help with that. And so you make those alliances, you create those relationships. Networking is really, really important. And sometimes when people can't do that, we actually teach. I've helped an individual go out, meet people, walk the streets with her, went to different stores, helped her find a nice way to introduce herself and let people know what she's doing, just so that she could get comfortable doing that. And it took a lot of extra effort, and it was a lot of extra work, but it was worth it, because that individual started her business and was continuing to work in it. I've lost touch with her, but I think she is still active in doing her very small business and dealing with her mental issues that she had that kept her from easily talking to people. And so sometimes you have to go and take that extra step and teach them. How do I do a phone call? How do I call somebody up? How do I write a sales script? And if you don't know how to do that, then you call the Small Business Development Center, or you find somebody, or you Google it and say, oh, here's a sample. How can we change it to make it fit your personality? And how would you be comfortable with it? So yeah, I do that a lot for our clients.
I think that's an excellent example of just one, providing different learning strategies, right? And how that extra step of just giving the example of the conversation, you know, that support where you're not doing for, but you're doing with and doing together really does, I think, make an impact, disability or not. And I love that you are pointing out all of those pieces that really drive success for self-employment and the clients that you're supporting.
Yeah, thank you. So it is individual service, really. It never changes. It doesn't matter if it is a business in sewing. You can have 5 different sewing businesses, and they all will have different needs. They will need different equipment. They will have different customers. So it's very individualized. And I think this is what I love about VR so much. It's not a cookie cutter type of consulting service that one fits all, because it doesn't. So that is the great part, I think. And you always learn something. You know, our clients are really smart and they have a lot of experience, and I've learned a lot of useful stuff from our clients as well. So it goes both ways.
Absolutely. Inga, this has just been fantastic. And as you wrap up, I keep thinking about there's a document around the core concepts of customized employment, and that top one being having an open and positive approach to life. And I think you are a fantastic example of that open and positive approach to life that so many of us, and you know, it's a core concept of service delivery that we embody, that open approach and that open willingness to think creatively, to individualize services and go above and beyond. And so I am incredibly grateful for your time today and sharing success stories. And I encourage anyone who is listening to please reach out to Inga if you have questions, and the Wyoming VR office that's doing some really fantastic work around self-employment.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you very much. Yes, and if anyone wants to call and talk to me, I'll be happy to do that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.